So I am to do an overview with you in a quarter of an hour, which is quite short, so I try either to speak very quickly or to be rather synthetic on each part of the world. I would like to start with this graph, which shows the evolution of world growth in red since 1970, and the evolution of Coface incident payment, which is represented in the blue line, since 1970. It shows three things. First thing, that there is a perfect correlation between the two elements. When world growth slump or slow down, we have an increase or a fast increase of payment incident declared by the companies insured at Coface. The second thing it shows, it's on the right-hand side, that the crisis we've just experienced is the worst since the first oil shock. We registered a growth shock of nearly 6 point GDP. And the third thing it shows from the second oil shock, which you see on the left-hand side, it's the second blue rectangle, you see that the economic cycle are getting shorter and shorter, 8 years, 7 years, and 5 years. The good piece of news is that on the right-hand side, with 2010, which is definitely the year of the recovery, and in orange, the forecast for 2011 is a forecast of a slowdown. But this year, we'll have a world growth still on the same pattern that the one on last year, with a two-speed recovery, led by the emerging country without any surprise. But you can see that there is a sharp slowdown since last year, because the growth for emerging countries were 6.9%, and it will slow down to 5.6%. In the advanced economy, which are in blue, the 1.7% is quite a sluggish growth, despite a very decent growth expected in the United States, and a good growth as well in Germany, which is back on its 2 feet, if we can say, not relying just on export and investment, but as well on the spending by consumer, which is quite a surprise, because we have been used in Germany to see German people not spending too much. But let's see in the future years if that is really a tendency. Now, for the one who doesn't know the country risk at rating, I like just to rapidly say what it is, because I will refer to it during this presentation. It assesses the average default by companies in a given country in the framework of their short-term trade operation. That is to say, with a duration of credit of 6 months. It has nothing to do with the ratings of big agency, nothing at all. It is assessed on three things: an analysis of financial, economic, and political data, and as well, and that makes it quite unique, it is assessed as well on the evolution of the payment incident by companies insured with Coface all over the world. And the third element is as well quite unique. It is a country business climate, which is a rating by itself, which you could check on our website, but it is as well integrated in the final rating. And this business climate rating is assessed partly by the teams of Coface in the world. They assess the transparency and availability of information data, which is the material we need to underwrite your risk. And they assess as well the fairness of the judicial system to creditors. So that's very important when you want to recover a debt. The country rating was launched 10 years ago. It is assessed on 155 countries, and it is scaled on 7 levels, A1, A2, A3, A4, being good risk and investment risk, and then you have B, C, and D, which are considered as speculative risk. Here you have, here you have a brief element about advanced economy this year. We feared last year a double dip for world growth, but thanks to the pragmatism of the Obama administration and the Republicans, with the prolongation of the Bush tax cut, and thanks again to Germany, we avoided the double dip in world growth. But we still think that risks are looming over advanced economy, with the deleveraging of households in the US and in many Eurozone countries, and deleveraging as well of companies, with unemployment being still very high. The austerity programs implemented in the peripheral countries of the Eurozone, and quite severe program as well in other economies. The inventory phase, which is phasing away, capacity utilization, which are still quite low, and of course a possible oil shock with the increase in energy prices, which could be a strain on companies' margin. There is as well a slowdown of world trade. So we think that for all these reasons, we'll still have a slowdown of both offer and demand, and that growth is there, but it's not still at the level before the crisis. Here you have, and I show you that from all the main areas of the world, you have the evolution of the country at rating for the main advanced economies. It starts in January 2007, and it will, we have sliced last year in 4 quarters in order to see if you can see the evolution. On January 2008, you see that we have put under negative watch the rating of 3 countries where we saw an amplification of the credit bubble and housing bubble. Without surprise, it's the United States, Spain, and the UK. Then we downgraded a lot of countries between 2009 and 2010. Blue color is coming back then, so that shows an improvement. But this year, in April, we have downgraded Portugal from A3 with a negative watch to A4, and we placed a negative watch on Japan, which is the grade A1, which is a good grade. We think the growth should be around 0.3% just, but I will come back to Japan at the end of the conference. Actually, just 9 countries out of 28 advanced economies have gone back to their pre-crisis rating. So that's a good piece of news, but that's not sufficient, because they represent only 18% of the world GDP, whereas advanced economies represent 63% of world GDP. So big, heavyweight are not yet back to their pre-crisis rating. Among them, the US. The US are rated A2 with a positive watch. We think, as I said, that the growth will be very decent with 2.5%. That's our forecast. The shock has been very violent. You see on the left-hand side, on the top, that's the number of bankruptcy, with an index of 100 in 2007, and you see that it has risen very sharply to get a peak at 220. It has slowed down, but look, it is really above the pre-crisis situation. So that's the reason why we think that the US should remain under positive watch in A2. You see that the credit is starting to grow again, but it's again not at the level of the pre-crisis level. So we think that in the US, you still will have deleveraging of household with the gasoline going up. So I think households are going to be very cautious with their spending, but it represents 70% of your GDP. So it's important that at one stage households go back to spending. The saving rate, you see on the right-hand side at the top, is high by US standard, around 6%. While it is lower than the one in Germany and France. It's around 16 or 17% of our disposable income. So the saving means less spending. And as for companies, they are hiring, but they are not hiring in a sufficient proportion to make the unemployment go down. So that's the reason why we think in the US, 2011 will be a kind of last year with quite a strong growth, but next year, without any fiscal stimulus or without any excessive credit as it was before the crisis, we think that growth should be around 2%, not far from what we expect for the Eurozone on the average.